The new presenting sponsor for OnEducation is Classcraft. Are you looking for a way to engage and connect with your students? Then this is the perfect time to try Classcraft, and we have a limited time offer to help you get started. Simply go to classcraft.com/OnEducation, and you will receive the first month free on a monthly premium subscription. To get started, go to classcraft.com/OnEducation.
It's a behemoth. We have a juggernaut on our hands. We're juggering. Welcome to OnEducation. I'm Mike Washburn.
And I'm Glen Irvin. Friends, we have an awesome pod for you today. We're going to discuss the Teacher of the Year, Rodney Robinson's inspirational journey. We will revisit my favorite topic, Teachers Pay Teachers. The Justin Timberlake of OnEducation is back for our Dig It or Ditch It segment. And our guests this week are educators and authors Adam, Chamberlin, and Sveti Matejic.
So I just rolled in from camping.
Ooh.
Like an hour and a half ago.
People can't see your face. It's windburned.
It's very windburned. Do you camp at all?
I am not a very good camper, Mike. I have to admit. Though my wife says that we are doing it this summer. So the story
okay, so your wife
about
sounds
to tell,
exactly like my wife.
The story that you're about to tell is striking a deep fear inside of me.
It's also ammo for you, though, for the case against it. So camping sucks, for the record, like really bad. I hate it. I really don't like it very much. But I actually have a very nice teachery metaphor about camping in a few minutes. But basically, so late April, it should be pretty nice out. Even up here, it was not nice, Glenn. It snowed. Like there was a snowstorm. So Friday night we go to set up, and it starts to snow in the middle of the night. And what we had done, one of the scout leaders and we were in a fairly large tent, and we put a tarp on top of it because we also had a lot of our stuff. Yes. Kind of in the area because it was kind of the leaders area. And so we had like the canteens and the coolers and a bunch of other nonsense. So we had a big tarp that was hung up from the trees around the tent, and the snow, because it was like a wet, heavy snow, came onto the tarp, and our tent collapsed. So the tent collapsed completely right on top of us while we were sleeping, which is friggin' great, let me tell you. And so I wake up and I say, Tom, the tent's on us. And he's like, what? And I'm like, no, Tom, the tent is like literally on us. We had to like crawl our way out of the tent, out of the opening, find the zipper, and get out of the vestibule kind of area that the tent had. And we literally 3 a.m, we're out there, and it's a blizzard. And we're putting the tent back together.
Oh, goodness.
It was the worst. And I didn't sleep after that. Like I don't sleep very well to begin with. It just
makes it worse.
So Friday night, I got about an hour sleep.
Wow.
So
that's
it
horrible.
was Saturday was a rough and so the snow like everywhere on our campsite on Saturday morning. So making breakfast was pretty brutal. That being said, the rest of the day was pretty good. And so I have a metaphor. I have a camping metaphor. Because I got all deep thoughty about this. I was like, there's parts of this that I really liked. I enjoy cooking outside, for example. I like cooking anyways, but cooking outside was great. And so cooking outside is fun. So I think that there's a metaphor to this. And I equated camping to a first year teacher. Okay. So I was thinking about this a little bit. Camping sucks to start, like really, really is crappy. And you're tired all the time and you're wondering how you're going to get things done. But there's something to be said for camping once you've got some experience, once you feel like you know what you're doing and you've got it down. Camping, I think, and I don't know this because I don't camp, I think camping could end up being fun. So I'm willing to actually give it another go. And I bought a whole bunch of stuff. So now I actually have to go camping because I spent all this money on stuff I absolutely don't need. So we'll see how it goes. It was our last scout camp, but I think that we'll go camping as a family, and I'm willing to give it a try, even though my tent collapsed. So, dude, you're killing it in Hearthstone, like killing it, like whole other level killing it.
Yeah. So Hearthstone, if people don't know this, is this kind of online card game strategy. We've talked about it before. It reminds me of a combination of Magic the Gathering. But if people don't know Magic the Gathering, it's basically a strategic chess game with lots of different pieces. Is a good way to be able to think of it. And you actually told me about it because you knew that I liked Magic the Gathering. So I started playing it a while. I don't know. It's how long it's been now.
3 or 4 months at least.
Yeah. It's been definitely longer than that. Probably 6 or 7 or 8 months. So it goes by these different ranks. So you start off at basically level, let's call it 20 or 25, and then each 5 levels that you go down, because you're trying to get to number 1, you get locked in. So, for example, if you get to level 15, you can't fall below level 15. So it's nice, so you can't go back to 16 and so on and so forth. So you keep going up and down the rankings. So once you get to level 10, that's fantastic because you can't go below level 10. So I was posting on Twitter that I got to level 6 and that I was almost to level 5, but I didn't want to jinx it. As you get closer to those higher levels, the more experienced and expert
the people
players
are harder to play. Yeah,
they're like really good players.
You're getting into expert level Hearthstone gaming, man. Like, I know. I've never even played the ladder gaming, and you are level 5 now. Is this right? Yeah, level 5, and I had 1 star. Basically, you move to each level with 5 stars, and then you move on to the next level in the increments. But between 6 and 5, I basically needed to play 1 more game and win it to move to level 5. If I lost it, you lose a couple ranks down. So it's really frustrating. So I put the pressure on myself and I started recording it and I posted it on YouTube just to see what would happen. Played the game, and actually the game ended up being, I got super lucky. And had everything kind of go my way, and then I actually had footage of it. So I was pretty cool too, because I actually streamed it basically to YouTube, and then was able to. So no matter what, if I never get back there again, I'll always have that one moment. I'm afraid to play you now. Like, I've almost went and like played you a couple times, but now like you would kick my ass down. Like, I don't know what to do now, because I thought I was okay at this game, but like you're in a whole other. This is a whole other universe. You and Jesse Budo are, he's another.
He's really
competitive
really
ladder Hearthstone player. So I mean, boy, I don't know.
All these teachers playing video games, we love it.
Listen, I'll play Hearthstone with you if you play Civilization 5 with me.
I know. It's the same kind of thing. It was super.
It is the same kind of thing.
I'd be destroyed in 2 seconds. I'm destroyed by the time I turn the game on. Join the world.
I'm pretty genocidal in Civilization 5. You can ask Paul. You can ask Paul DeVarzi how that goes.
How you play? Awesome.
So, Rodney Robinson was named the teacher of the year in the U.S. and this is a hell of a guy.
Yes, really inspirational story. If you don't know it, you should go check it out. We'll make sure we put a link to at least one of the stories. There's many of them on all kinds of different outlets. But he teaches at a juvenile detention center, and he basically his principal said that he creates a positive school culture by empowering his students, many of whom you can imagine have experienced all kinds of trauma. And basically what his goal is for them to become civically minded social advocates who use their skills and voices. I mean, you recognize this stuff. This is what we do at school. He's doing this at a juvenile detention center. So use their skills and voices to affect physical and policy changes at their schools and in their communities. So it's a super powerful story. I'm really happy that such a unique teaching educator, an environment, yes. Won this teacher of the year because it's super inspirational, and a lot of people don't know this about me. I talk about this a little bit in my keynote when I give a keynote, kind of thing, but they don't know, number one, that I would have been the last person in the world that you would have thought would become an educator. And only my family and friends that were friends with me, especially when I was in kind of the junior high stage, life.
Okay.
We were living in El Paso, Texas, and I basically was a juvenile delinquent. I mean, I would actually say that I was. Participated in all kinds of different, I wouldn't call them super big criminal activities, but they were definitely criminal activities. Got busted one time massively. I got sent to an alternative school.
Oh,
and
boy.
Luckily enough, my mom and then my dad came kind of back into our lives, and we ended up moving to New Mexico for my 9th grade year. And it was kind of like a reset button. And included in that reset button, I still didn't like school, and I hated the whole concept of it. And there was a teacher, and I talk about this in my keynote, that basically was the first person to ever tell me that I had a talent or a skill in something that had to do with something positive, you know what I mean? Instead of something delinquent oriented. And that is huge. That's what this guy is doing. He's basically saying, hey, you may be here now at this stage of your life, but that doesn't mean that's who you are. And let me go ahead and be the first person to go ahead and say, hey, you can do these things, and this is just one stage of life. What happens afterwards is really what's going to matter for the years to come. And so, again, it really reminded me of things that have happened to myself and probably all kinds of other people out there, not just educators, but other students, where a teacher's intervened and then did something which we don't even know sometimes, the kind of the power that we have. And you talk about this too, Mike, and how meaningful it can be towards that person's path. And so definitely relate to that. And so Rodney Robinson, man, congratulations, and hope to hear more stories about everything that you do.
Just amazing. Just amazing. Hey, so you've had an epiphany of sorts. The clouds have parted.
Yes,
and
there was clouds.
The sun is shining through on Glen. I don't know. I don't want to. I want to take it away. The sun is shining on Glen today.
Yes. So I guess it's sort of a bombshell, because it's kind of we all know that teacher pay is a concern. We talk about it on the show all the time. It's a concern. The reason why teacher strikes are happening is one of the main concerns about teacher pay. The covers of Time magazine really brought to light all of these different stories of people not even being able to afford healthcare or pay their bills. And so anyway, I read and then watched a documentary by Dr. Will Dayenport.
Right.
And he creates this video documentary that I believe it's a must watch for all educators. Whether or not you agree with what I'm about to say or my epiphany here, you should just watch it, because it's interesting and really it gives you a completely different viewpoint than I actually had. I think I was very limited in my scope as far as my judgment of all these people. And it basically has me reevaluating my entire stance against monetizing my talents as an educator.
Right.
And maybe I've been wrong the whole entire time. Basically, there's a quote here that says, there's still so many teachers who give so much of themselves, their time and content away for free. And then the second part of this is that it was so powerful, because so many things have been happening in the last few weeks that this part right here was so important to me. Many teachers are also committed to ed tech companies as ambassadors, or whatever you actually want to call them. And then they provide their content as well as their expertise for free. They don't get paid for their work. And I just posted kind of a thread on Twitter that this is so true. And basically my takeaways are these. Number one, I'm still against the concept of teachers pay teachers. So nobody think that I've jumped off that shit. But I do want to say that if you're a teacher who's choosing to sell items on there to make a living, to make ends meet, to make some disposable income, which we talk about that all the time, I'm going to stop with my holier than thou attitude. And now if you choose to purchase an item on TPT, just be aware of what you're purchasing, and then just make sure that once you get that activity, that you really thoroughly vet that activity before you give it to your students. So sometimes, and I've heard of people doing this, where they purchase something, they then tweak it, kind of make it their own, but they are able to get the main parts of the ideas and then make it so it really fits their students. If you're doing that, then good. That's awesome. Yeah.
Also, I think exercise some critical thinking when it comes to teachers pay teachers, like in the sense that make sure that, like, if you're searching for something, search and see if it's the original version of it, or try to make some deduction as to whether it's been copied. That's, I think, the biggest problem you have, like, and we've obviously talked about this a lot.
Yes.
One of the biggest problems that we feel like we have is that there are predatory people on teachers pay teachers, and it's that you really want to avoid. I don't have a problem with paying people for their time and their expertise. People should be paid, especially if the quality of the things that they're selling, that they're offering, is good.
Yes.
You deserve to earn an income for work that you do. It's that simple. But if the thing is, make sure it's the original thing. That's a big thing with this, for sure.
Yes.
All right.
Number 2, if you're an ambassador, like I'll state right now, I'm a Schoology ambassador and a Minecraft mentor. I've been other kinds of ambassadors for different companies. It's not the equivalent of being an employee. That's what my advice to you is, that you are not their employee. And my advice to you is do what you want to go ahead and do for them. Okay. But never feel like you have to do anything. So if you ever feel like pressure, like you have to do something, then it's time to go ahead and not be part of that organization, because it's not worth it. So it basically should be kind of an equivalent relationship, if you want to call it that, Mike. You know what I mean? So you're getting
reciprocal. It should be a reciprocal relationship.
That's a great word right there. Yes, you're getting something for yourself and for your career. Maybe it's advancing your career. Maybe it's advancing your ideas in a bigger platform. If that is the case, and it has been the case for me on various times, then fantastic. Continue to do that. But if at any moment it feels like it's an unbalanced relationship, then just understand that you don't have to actually be part of that to still be a great educator, a person that's out there spreading their ideas. So
100%.
That was my number 2. And number 3, I understand teaching is not a lucrative profession economically. So if you have the time, energy, and talent to create something outside of school time, so a business or a service,
a podcast,
a book, whatever resources.
Right.
My new take on this, after watching that video, after studying what Dr. Will has done, I'm saying go for it. And yes, it's okay to make money doing this, because that's one of the ways that you can actually complement your income. That may not be enough for you, may not be what you need it to be able to do the things that you want it to be. So there was my big epic spiel. You've
come so far.
Padawan.
It makes me so happy, though.
I think I'm going to make some people angry too.
I don't care. They're wrong and you're right.
Well, it's okay.
You have, and I've been saying this forever, but I went on a rant again about it just the other day, that Glen Irvin has unique expert level experience that is worth something.
Yeah.
Both to you and to other people. And you owe nobody anything to give that away. You have unique knowledge and unique ideas, and those have value, not just emotional value and all of that. They have monetary value, and everybody deserves to get paid for the unique knowledge and experience that they have. I'm not saying you need to rake people. I'm not saying that you need to, when someone says, "Can you help me?" you say, "I charge $100 an hour." I'm not saying it like that. I'm saying that, especially in these relationships with businesses and companies, I mean, your knowledge to them is worth something. That's why you're there.
Yes.
That's why you are a Minecraft mentor and a Schoology ambassador, because your knowledge about Minecraft and Schoology has monetary value to them.
Yes, it does.
But you're not getting paid for that.
True.
So
yes.
Just, this is great. We've come full circle and it's a whole new world. And I'm here for it, Glen. I'm here for
You've
Glen
been here
2.0.
Yes, exactly. You've been here their whole circle, the 360.
Oh, buddy.
Or the 180.
So, Dig It or Ditch It was such a huge success that, we're back. It's the end of the month, and when we come back, we'll be joined by our Justin Timberlake, Noah Geisel.
Do you have plans to attend the ISTE conference this summer? Come one day early and participate in the Best Hidden Gem Conference in the United States. Badge Summit 2019 will take place on the Temple University campus in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on June 22nd. There will be lots of wicked smart educators to collaborate with on topics such as digital badges, credentials, gamification, and more. To learn more about Badge Summit, simply visit bit.ly/Badge Summit.
All right, welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Our friend Noah Geisel is here with us, and Dig It or Digit starts right now. All right, Noah, we're here. We're ready.
Yes, we are. We're so ready.
We're psyched. We're pumped. How you doing?
Man, I'm fantastic. Great to be back. I really appreciate all the reception that your listeners have given to the Dig It or Ditch It segment, and I'm excited to give it another run with you guys.
It's a behemoth. We have a juggernaut on our hands. We're juggering.
We're nodding. We're either juggling or nodding, one of them.
Oh my god.
Awesome. All right, so let's do it. We got four questions. We have no idea what they are. That's the rules. And we have to tell you whether all three of us are gonna talk about whether we dig it or we ditch it.
Okay.
Yeah, and listeners, we do have one new wrinkle that we are going to actually be assigning who has to respond with their first hot take with each Dig It or Ditch It question. And to that end, piggybacking on the juggering or nodding, Glenn, you were up first.
Oh god.
Failure culture. Dig it or ditch it?
I'm going to ditch it, actually.
Oh no.
And it's because I've actually just experienced it. Actually, we have an interview talking about this probably after this segment. And it talks about that we are super fascinated with the culture of failure. And I think we kind of need to redefine it. That's the best way to be able to describe it. It's not that I'm opposed to saying that we need to have our students have grit and determination and be able to come back from failure. Totally, that all the research is in that area. But I think we would need to take a step back as educators and really figure out why our students are failing, number one. And then number two, does it have stuff to do with things on our end? As teachers, do we need to hold ourselves responsible for the way that we're delivering the content, what we're actually doing as far as activities in class? Because I think a lot of times people want to say students should have grit and they should have, they should be able to get through all of these things because it'll help them later in life, but we don't help guide them in that process, or we don't take accountability for possibly being the people that set up the obstacles that create the failures in the first place. So I hope that actually makes sense. Mike, I know you have a good take on this too.
So I'm digging it, but I'm also reframing it. Glenn's kind of stolen my thunder here a little bit.
Oh God.
I definitely think that first off, failure is a good thing. I don't think kids should be afraid to mess things up, make mistakes, things going off the rails. Though this is fine. And actually, I reminded someone just the other day that there is an actual legitimate concept called failing fast. And it's applied a lot in technology companies, and it's related to the iterative process and the idea that the sooner you know that something isn't working, the sooner you can go back and start the process again and start it. So, I mean, maybe it's the word failure that's the actual...
Seems like a final thing, yeah.
Right. The problem is maybe the word, because the concept, the idea of making a mistake, of not getting something right, and then coming back around and trying again, it's not about the falling down, it's about the getting up. That's the reframe that needs to happen. And we need to be reminding not only ourselves, but students and other teachers. And actually, you've set this up beautifully, because on Thursday, I'm doing my first large, big talk. Not a keynote, but they call it a spotlight. And I'm talking about getting up. I'm talking about when things go off the rails, what you do when you're lacking motivation because you're failing. And again, I use that word because I haven't really thought of the best word to use as an alternative, but the idea of getting up is what's really important here. So I'm digging it because I like the concept. I'm reframing it because I think there might be a problem with the word failure, but also the idea that getting up is the important part. Noah, what say you?
I was prepared to say ditch it, and I'm also hearing that all three of us are really on the same page with this. It's not so much about the concept, it's about the culture of the rah-rah cheerleading the fail versus what comes next, right? That it's about, as you said, the getting up. It's not the missed shot that we're celebrating, right? It's what do you do to rebound, regroup, and then retry afterwards.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Next up, Mike, hot take. It's playoff season. What is your take? Dig it or ditch it. Sports metaphors in learning and in life.
Sports metaphors in learning and in life? I use them a lot, so I guess I have to.
Yeah, he does. I just called him out on one that he did the other day on a text message.
Oh, right. What did I say? I can't even remember what it was. But you can't hit any balls you don't get up to the plate for. So talking about missed opportunities, and I mean, it's not an opportunity if you don't step up to the plate and try to at least hit it. So I like some of them. I think, there are some people that can go crazy with them, especially if that's kind of all you know. Thankfully, that's not all I know. So I'm digging them. I'm fine with it. I think that there's some good lessons to learn in sports, and yeah, boys, you can't swing for balls you don't get up to the plate to hit. Batter up, Glenn.
I know. I also will dig it, though. I think too many times we try to do an exact comparison between what happens in the classroom, like too closely related. We say, oh, it's the same thing as if you were coaching, blah, blah, blah. I coached many years for 20 years of different sports coaching. And some of the things are applicable that happened on the court or on in track or whatever might be to what happened in my classroom. Some, but I don't think they're always directly correlated between the two things. And the reason why I say that's, Noah, is I chose to play a sport when I was in high school, and I had a passion for it. And that passion to do those things is different than sometimes what kids are bringing into your classroom. You wish it was always the same thing, but it's not voluntary. Our participation in athletics or whatever our endeavors are totally voluntary, but school is not. And so sometimes those analogies I think are just too far. Like they're like, just do this. And it's like, I don't think it's exactly, they don't correlate between the two. So I do enjoy some of them. They do make sense. And, but I think sometimes people take it too far.
That's a great point. And I'm with you all. I'm definitely digging the sports metaphors in learning and in life. And I also think it's a great opportunity for us, especially in 2019, to really hit the brakes and reflect on, when we're bringing in these analogies and these metaphors, are we doing so in ways that perpetuate, things like systemic racism and marginalization, right? That are we going with just kind of white male, centric kind of things, or are we being really inclusive in our metaphors?
Fantastic point there. Yes.
All right, fellas. Next up on Dig It or Ditch It. Glenn, we're sticking with you.
Okay, I'm excited.
Maker space vendors. Dig it or ditch it.
This is so awesome and so funny.
I'm enjoying this a lot.
Because Mike and I have had various experience with this. Maker space vendors. I'm ditching it. And I have this, and Mike knows this about me. I have this thing. I really hate the vendor part of conferences. I think it's part of just my own personality that I don't like, for example, going to a used cars lot. I would rather purchase just something online that I don't have to actually speak to someone to try to negotiate anything. So it feels very much like that when I'm in a vendor area at an ed tech type of place. So the makerspace type of vendors, if that's what we're specifically talking about, I would say it's not that the tools and those types of things aren't amazing and that there's all kinds of great things that you could do as far as in your classes or as a specific makerspace. It's just that I'm not the right person to be able to go into those spaces and be able to, I don't know, for better words, wheel and deal and be able to go ahead and like make those kind of decisions on the fly or ask the right questions or not feel pressure like I have to do something at that moment. So I'm not sure if I took that a different way. What do you take it as, Mike?
So I feel like I'm going to dig makerspace vendors only because I'm not afraid of the conversations with vendors in any way. I understand the business side of this pretty clearly. And to be honest, I work for a company that sells things into makerspaces.
Yeah, you are a makerspace vendor.
I mean, maybe a little bit anyways. So I don't have a problem with vendors. They got a job to do, and you can go down there and talk to them or you can not. And it's entirely up to you. You have agency in whether you go down to the show floor of a conference or not. And you can certainly choose not to. And that's perfectly fine. It is a business relationship and you're down there. If you're down there, you're looking to do business. And so it's a little bit different environment than teachers are used to in their classrooms. And especially, maybe I have a little bit more of a unique perspective on this because I was in business. Like I was the national sales manager for a steel company before I became a teacher. So I have a business background where a lot of teachers, just teach and some do have a business background, but don't have that cutthroat kind of, that expo floor business background where it's pretty aggressive. And maybe there's an aversion to that for some teachers because of the tenor and the tone and like the pace of the floor and the expectations of, can I give you my card? Can I give you this deal? Blah, 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 blah.
Can I scan your badge?
I get this. Yes. I get the aversion. I get the aversion to the aggression, to that business side of it. I completely understand it. So that's
I also wanted to say, I thought about this, is if I was if I had the power, Mike, to be able to go ahead and do purchases at my school, maybe I would think I would feel differently. I would want to, I have a certain amount of budget to be able to go ahead and, for example, in this case, we're talking about makerspace type of products.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in those. I would then, and I have a specific budget, I would want to know more and I would want someone to show me some hands-on kind of stuff so I can see them in real life, not on some video. And then maybe I would have a different type of take on it. I think I would, because I would have the ability to then purchase things. Just too many times I feel like I don't belong there. I can't make a decision anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, you really shouldn't even be talking to me. I'm not really the decision maker as far as the money goes.
Do listening to y'all's answers there, I feel like you took it in really unexpected ways for me, and it makes me feel
awesome.
like I
like it.
It makes me feel like this was my red herring, dig it or ditch it question, because and I love where you took it, because as somebody who organizes conference, everybody check out bit.ly/badge summit, right? Like, vendors are essential to making stuff not just possible, but affordable for teachers.
Yep.
And so, for me, I was not coming this necessarily from an anti-vendor point of view, more from, I guess, a culture. For me, I'm ditching makerspace vendors from the perspective of the culture that I think for a lot of our colleagues and peers that there's this sort of ethos in the air that makerspaces are things we buy.
Oh, yes.
And so I'm ditching that the makerspace is not four walls and it's not things, right? Makerspace is opportunities to help our students do and make. And I think that the cool gadgets and the flashy stuff make a makerspace a really exciting, engaging place, and it really lures students in. And I think that just the idea that it's something that is a commodity that we buy is a place where a lot of our peers are going down a path that is not necessarily wrong. It's just not necessary. It's a narrower view than I think is needed.
I think one of the things that you've made me think of too is if there's a company that's trying to sell you like a turnkey makerspace, which is I think what you're talking about, Noah. Makerspaces are about inquiry, are about finding what your students are interested in doing and making, and then go get the tools to do that stuff. It's you can develop a makerspace organically through a process of discovery and learning about your students and what they're interested in. And then all of a sudden, a couple years later, you look around and you have soldering irons and sewing machines and welding equipment and whatever else you might have, because you developed a makerspace organically out of the desire of your students and what they want to do.
Totally. I think that most folks who have the opportunity to put down a credit card and spend money on the makerspace would agree that those dollars go a lot further when they're buying things to facilitate deeper and more interesting questions than if they were buying what they thought were answers. Right? That the answers end up in the corner gathering dust. It's the questions that really get used. All right, fellas, last digit question for this segment.
Oh, yeah.
Glenn, I think we're going to bring it back to you then, since you sounded so excited.
God.
Let's stick with the topic of vendors. Okay. Vendor, fill in the blank vendor, certified educators. Dig it or ditch it.
Man, we just talked about that too.
This is the greatest segment in the history of segments.
Yeah, it's like everything that we've been talking about. So I'm going to ditch it.
There it is.
And because I feel like there's this, like I have just received an epiphany, and that's what I've talked about earlier in the show, about the connection between a company and a teacher, and then how obligated a teacher feels that they have to be to that company. And then also, what does it actually mean to be a certified, whatever it might be, whether it be Apple, Google, or any of the other million different types of ed tech companies? What does it that actually mean? And we all know, I mean, Mike, you're certified in everything, and I have, some different types of certifications, but really what it is you passed a test of some sort, and you maybe showed some evidence of some materials of whatever it might be.
Right.
But what does that really mean, though? Does it mean that you are a person that's willing to go ahead and continue, like you're a lifelong learner? If that's what it means, then that's fantastic. But too often it's like how many things can I put underneath my credentials, as far as the thing goes. And if you don't have those things, it's like you might be viewed as less than, which I don't think that should be the case at all. So the connection between teachers and ed tech companies is such a precarious one. And I've traveled that road, man. Oh my goodness. I've traveled it up and down. And now at the end of this road, I don't feel like it's the end of my road, but I just feel like, I've actually gotten to see the light. And I'm going to tell everybody that just be careful with what you commit to, and always understand that you don't have to give anything to any of these people because you're not their employee. And I've learned that hard lesson, as far as within my path with all the different people that I've been involved in. Some of them have been fantastic, great relationships, and some of them not so much. And it's because I felt like obligated to give more of myself and give more of my stuff than I should have been. And those are hard lessons to learn. Hopefully other people don't have to have the same experiences.
I'm digging it, but only in a certain context. And I think that there's a couple things that I've been thinking about while Glenn has been talking. I think the first thing that I want to just point out as a side note is that OnEducation wouldn't exist if Glenn and I were not Schoology ambassadors.
That's true.
So while it had nothing to do with Schoology in the sense that, Schoology was good to us, through this, but it was because, we were in a community and we have mutual interests, and that's what brought us together. So I think that dovetails into my thought, which is, because I'm actually starting a community with Logix Academy, that I want to focus on using the word community, because that is, I think, the biggest part of this. The folks that I've grown to know and respect in, for example, the Schoology ambassador community are some of my favorite teachers that I've ever met. So favorite people to be around and hang out with when we get the chance to do it.
Absolutely agree.
I think that community, and also, frankly, some of the most supportive people of the podcast that you would have ever, I mean, it's been unbelievable. We wouldn't be anywhere if it wasn't for some of those people as well. So, and I know they're all listening right now, so you know who you are, and we adore
You're
you
amazing.
guys.
Yes.
And so I want to focus on the community because there's been some experiences recently that have left a sour taste in my mouth with advocate communities and this type of thing, but it's because the relationship is not reciprocal. And there is when a advocate community is not giving you back as much as you're putting into it, that's when you need to start thinking about what you're doing there and what's happening with that, because it's not just about you giving all of your time, your expertise, your energy, your resources, your knowledge to Google or Apple or whatever. It's about that group also having a benefit to you, making you a better teacher, a better person, providing you with connections. The community aspect is, I think, the most important part about this. And some of these groups are losing that community aspect, at least between the group of people and the company itself. That community aspect is being lost on some of these.
Mike, I am totally with you on digging the vendor certified teachers. I see it's very similar to you, that it's about community. And I also think that, there's enough stuff that we educators deal with that's not awesome in our lives, right? And so you've got folks who are being given this opportunity to be elevated in a way that they see value in. And to me, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. If they see value in it, to put it in their bio that I'm a fill-in-the-blank certified teacher, right? Awesome. Let's do it. Like, it's not like your principal's, letting the world know how great you are. So let's let a vendor do it. So, you know what I mean? True. Like, I'm just a strong believer in the advocacy piece of anything that gives us an opportunity to celebrate ourselves, to celebrate one another. We should take advantage of it. And I think what you say, Mike, is really wise, that, we probably, certain things are not going to pass the smell test. Right? If a vendor is not being authentic, if they're not, in it for teachers, that's probably going to very quickly be something that doesn't look and feel and taste and smell like a community, and it's going to go away. And so, and another thing that I was thinking of picturing you, rooting for the Flames or something, is that the part of the community is that we are both passionate about this same tool or product or whatever. And just like we're fans of a team, right? Mm-hmm. That we see somebody else's bio that they're a fill-in-the-blank certified educator, and that's them wearing our same team's jersey, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't know them, and I right away feel a connection to them. And I think that's pretty awesome in this world, and it's something that, is possible in 2019 that wasn't possible for teachers in 1919.
I like both of you guys' statements. But I'm glad I went first, though, because I just feel that there's a big difference to me between the communities that I have been involved in, the people, let's just call them the people. And they are amazing and beautiful and have helped me so much in everything that I've, probably in the last 7 or 8 years have been the best parts of my career because of these communities. The company that's connected to that, I think, is a different entity, and you should just make sure that whatever relationship you get into with them, that it's something that you, like Mike just said, that it's mutually beneficial. So that's my little spiel then.
Awesome, friends. That was Dig It or Ditch It, and we hope you dig it. We will thank Noah Geisel for being our host. Thanks, buddy.
Hey, thank you guys so much for having me. This is a lot of fun to just ponder ahead of time. If any listeners have dig it or ditch it questions they want me to throw out to Mike and Glenn, please do direct message me on Twitter. I'm at Senior G. And for any OnEducation pod listeners who want to attend Badge Summit, it's June 22nd in Philadelphia, bit.ly/Badge Summit. And for the first 10 listeners that want to attend for a 30% discount, use promo code OnEducation.
There it is. Promo code and everything, folks. Get on it. We're going to be there on Saturday, and it's going to be a blast. When we come back, we're going to be joined by the authors of Quit Point, Adam Chamberlin and Sveti Matejic. Welcome back, everyone. Adam Chamberlin and Sveti Matejic teach at Franklin Heights High School in Columbus, Ohio, and they're the founders of POM LLC. They're the authors of the book Quit Point, Understanding Apathy, Engagement, and Motivation in the Classroom, and they join us today. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So to start, could you both share a little bit of your background with the audience and about how you came together to form your company, and how did you come together to write this great book?
Okay, I'll take this one, Sveti. So, we've been teaching together now for 10 years at the same high school, in the same department. We just kind of, had kind of a natural friendship and then sharing ideas in the classroom. But I would say for the most part, fairly traditional style over our first few years. And then I guess it was about 6 years ago now, we were both part of kind of a pilot one-to-one program. So each student in our classroom was going to have a device in their hands that we were going to be able to kind of structure the entire class around. And initially we were like, this is great. We fought for it to be part of this program. We thought it was going to cure a lot of those issues of engagement and motivation in the classroom. And then what we found about a month in is, we were just talking, we're still having a lot of the same issues that we've had in the past. Mm-hmm. So that started, we started talking about what are those issues that are causing kids to shut down. How can we address those issues and try to, refocus them to get better production out of it? So simply using the technology, it opened up a lot of opportunities, but it didn't cure those basic issues of motivation in the classroom. So that's when we really started to put all of our emphasis onto that, in order to get better production on the other end.
The title of your book is called Quit Point, and this is also the name of the concept that the book centers around. What exactly is the Quit Point?
So when you think about energy and engagement and activity in a classroom or just in any part of your life, the quit point is that moment where your energy or your effort can just drop. And it might mean you're dropping, from 100% effort to 0% effort. It might mean you're dropping from 80% to 50%. It might mean that you realize that you're at risk to go in the wrong direction and you have to kind of give more energy to maintain the same effort. But when that quit point occurs, the key element is that if you are maintaining your energy, you're maintaining your focus, that's not going to be sufficient to actually maintain your production. And so you have to do something, whether from your end or from somebody assisting you, to be able to keep going forward. And so the example, the first example we started giving, it's my favorite one, is the tree that fell in my backyard. It took me a good 6 months to chop it up and start moving it, because the price of removal was a huge quit point on my part, but also the effort for removal was a huge quit point. And so until the neighbor started yelling at us, I didn't have enough energy to push me through and get rid of that tree.
So Edu-Twitter and Glen and I are like embedded in this, but they talk about engagement constantly. It's the dominant theme of when people are talking on Twitter is engagement and student engagement. And I think a distillation, if we had to distill Quit Point into like one small concept or broad concept, I guess, is that it's a book about student engagement and when and why students become disengaged. I just wrote your elevator pitch for you. You probably had that already. You probably don't need that.
I appreciate that. Oh, go ahead.
What was the motivation to take something teachers are constantly talking about anecdotally and infusing it with academia and research? You've written a solid academic research-based book here.
Well, first of all, thank you. And I love your use of the phrase there, Edu-Twitter.
Yeah.
Anyone who's not in the Edu-Twitter universe, when you try to explain it to them, like, no, there's this whole other culture of of teachers and educators that are that have hundreds of thousands of followers and are just constantly on. And I tell my students that, I'm like, what do you mean there's Twitter chats tonight? Like, yeah, that's what some teachers do. So it's a whole world out there for the education universe. Getting back to your question, one thing that definitely jumped out to me is kind of like the emphasis that, which it's not necessarily an educational concept, but the emphasis in the past 10, 15 years on like behavioral economics as a concept, in terms of people just in day-to-day life don't always do the rational thing. They don't always make the rational decision or what you believe to be the the logical long-term solution to their problems. And that was just something that I dabbled with outside of education. So we started looking into and researching some more of those topics, because as a teacher, we've all had those issues where it's like, I just need you to do this. You do this thing and you're going to be ready for the test. You do this thing, you're going to get whatever grade you've been aiming for. And then students will do the exact opposite. And you wonder why, like, why would somebody go, against their interest in that? So actually, like, getting into some of that research that's been done in terms of behavioral economics, some recent, psychological studies in terms of motivation and behaviors and things like that. They take us out of the realm of education, but they get us into the realm of just actual human behavior. So then we could start to apply those to the classroom and try to start to diagnose why are kids quitting in the first place. What are things that we could do to try to re-engage them in the classroom? So it's definitely a book about engagement in the classroom. We just kind of approached it from the opposite end, understanding that while 100% engagement is, ideally this mythical goal, that's not going to happen on a day-to-day basis. And realistically, 80%, 90%, even 70% engagement on a lot of days is going to be really productive, over the course of the school year. So just trying to be realistic with the fact that we as adults, we hit quit points at various times of the day. Students definitely hit quit points in various times of the day. Let's not ignore that fact. Let's understand that they will have their issues. There's various things that we could do to try to influence that and get them back on track to try to maximize our moments of engagement in the classroom.
So cell phones in the classrooms are a controversial topic. And in the book you write, teachers curse the invention of the cell phone because they believe it is the source or is a source of distraction. But we need to understand that those devices may not cause quitting. They may instead be a student's way of coping with having reached obstacles that led to that quit point. So do you have any advice for the teachers that are listening that are frustrated with cell phone use both in and out of the classroom?
Okay, that's an excellent question. I did not know it was going that far in Canada that there was legislation being proposed already.
Yes, it's crazy.
I've definitely heard those conversations in the staff room and in various committees at the district level in my own school in terms of do we ban them outright? What's our policy? So it's a difficult one for teachers to handle. And I would say, is in terms of advice, one approach that I've taken, and it certainly doesn't do away with the frustration, at times, but just to understand that while it is a distraction, it's not necessarily like the root of the problem necessarily. So one thing that Sveti and I have both done in the classroom is to try to view certain quitting behaviors more as symptoms of a bigger problem. Almost like we're diagnosing a problem here. When I take my kids in, when they have a fever, I don't take them into the doctor for the fever. I take them in. The fever is the symptom, and I'm asking their doctors to. Now we're trying to find what is the root of the problem.
What is the root? Yes.
So that's not at all to say that I haven't been frustrated myself as a classroom teacher. When cell phones are out. But first of all, from our end, just recognizing that it's a symptom, and quite frankly, if I was young enough that I had cell phones, in the classroom, I'm sure I would have turned to it quite a bit, because there were plenty of times that I was not engaged in school. One of the issues that in one of those staff discussions that I got into once, and I remember a teacher cursing cell phones, as we said, where they said the cell phone is the single worst thing to happen to education.
Yes.
And I felt this, this colleague's frustration, but I just said, that's kind of this notion that before cell phones, like schools were perfect and that we did not have engagement issues at all. And that's totally false.
Mm-hmm.
I had plenty of classes and I felt I was a pretty good student going through, K through 12, but there were plenty of times where I was bored in the classroom. You wrote notes, you kind of tuned in and out.
Paper airplanes.
Yeah, paper airplanes. I once got yelled at by my geometry teacher for, throwing spitballs and things like that. Like, we just didn't have technology. If that was the case, I'm sure I would have been watching Netflix in the back of the room instead of throwing spitballs. So the cell phones, they are a distraction. We're not trying to go away from that. They can be a distraction to engagement. But understanding on the teacher end, that is more a symptom of something else. One other strategy that we use is we don't try to shy away from it, and we don't treat cell phones simply as a discipline. We try to turn the emphasis back onto the student. Our emphasis in the classroom is on learning. So therefore, and we try to put that emphasis heavily on the students to take ownership of their learning. And then when we have to have that cell phone discussion, it turns into the cell phones seem to be a distraction for some people. Maybe those cell phones need to be off to the side. Maybe the cell phones need to be put away. For various, for a multitude of reasons. I don't like to take cell phones in my classroom. I would say the biggest one is I don't want to turn my back and have that cell phone gone, and then I'm liable for it.
Sure.
But I have had students, after having that more positively framed conversation with them in terms of the cell phone seems to be distracting you in class, and it's keeping you from reaching what you've set as your goals. Is there something that we could do to help monitor and manage that behavior on your end? And I've had students just walk in and say, here's my phone. Can you lock it up for the period? Sure, I'll gladly do that.
Awesome.
Other kids, that simple conversation, once again, because it's not a discipline conversation anymore, those students don't have a problem setting their phone off to the side. It takes away the control factor, and it takes it out of the teacher's hands, and it gives students control over their learning, including what may be a distraction for them in their classroom. So while it doesn't always relieve all stress on my part when it comes to phones, I feel that's the direction that we need to go as educators, because quite frankly, cell phones are not going away. You can make legislation. I don't know how that's really going to work, because cell phones are only going to become more and more attached and more complex and advanced. So trying to find some way for the students themselves to recognize on this particular occasion seems to be getting in the way of what we're trying to do. Maybe you need to do something else with it.
So as a teacher, I wanted my students to be resilient and work through difficulties in class. And in the book you write, again, as teachers, we can influence a student's optimism by controlling the situation. We can attempt to reduce the likelihood of student quit points by focusing on optimism, and I really like this part, and reasonable short-term outcomes. Tell us more about how to focus on optimism in our classes.
And this is another thing where when you start talking about resilience, I know in that edu Twitterverse that you kind of mentioned earlier,
Yes.
Teachers, we all want our students to be to have more resilience and have perseverance. As a parent of two young kids, you want to use those opportunities and those lessons to teach those skills, to our young kids, so that they become resilient adults as well, and don't shut down to every single obstacle. I don't know if you have the same problem in Canada. In the United States, I guess they're calling them like snowplow parents, where parents like plow out of the way all obstacles that kids have to face. And then
we call them helicopter parents.
Okay,
we have those too.
so we've had helicopter parents, and then I just saw an article like a month ago where they're calling them like snowplow parents, where it's not only are they hovering.
That's actually more appropriate for where I live too.
More aggressive.
Yeah, exactly. Up in Canada, and I thought that term was so great, because you have like the helicopter parents. We've all seen those parents that hover, but this notion of I'm going to barrel in front of you and remove all obstacles, that's not helping the students. That's not helping kids in any way to become fully functioning and resilient, adults. So, I think most teachers look for those opportunities to build resilience in the classroom. Now, with that being said, I think a lot of people's approach to doing so in the classroom is just, here's this very long lesson or a long project. It's not chunked properly. It's not broken up into manageable tasks. And then it's just, here's the job, here's the deadline. And then a lot of times they'll justify it in terms of saying, well, in the real world, or once you're working and things like that, that's how things are done. You're giving these, here's a task, get it done by this time.
Yes.
And while, yes, that's what we're working towards, but we're still working with kids of various ages. A lot of adults shut down at that time. Sveti earlier shared the story about him hitting a quit point over a fallen tree in his backyard. That was a job that a bunch of us could have gone over there and helped him out in over a weekend, but I was not eager to volunteer my time to help him out. He was not eager to go out in his backyard and give up a weekend chopping down a tree and stuff like that. That we hit our own quit points, so trying to find ways to chunk it. And then when it comes to the optimism piece, we tried in the writing not to make it like, dense in research. Actually, our publisher at the time was like, it's still supposed to be like a popular read with references to research, but don't drown it down with research at all. But some of the research that I found most interesting, not necessarily referenced throughout, but was definitely a big influence, was various research on optimism from Martin Seligman, who had done this study back in the days, where he basically found animals that shut down, and by building a system of small little manageable goals, now you can start to teach younger students ways to build optimism. And so when they do hit a roadblock, they don't shut down right away. When a good student does get a bad score on a test, they don't see it as the end all be all of their academic existence. They see it as, yes, ooh, this was a roadblock, or, oh, I really wasn't prepared for this test. Next time one comes around, we need to approach it differently. And I know like Carol Dweck, with all of her research on growth mindset, also plays into it, emphasizing that our goal is to always get better. That does not mean we're going to be great the entire time. That does not mean that we're going to be, absent of these roadblocks that hinder us along the way, but just trying to find ways to chunk things into small, manageable goals. We have a friend who is a very good distance runner and a track coach. I, on the other hand, despise running quite a bit. So I joke with him, and I'm like, if you told me I'll give you $1 million at the end of the year if you could run in such and such marathon, I would probably just tell you, no, it's not going to happen, because the thought of running 26.2 miles sounds absolutely, horrific to me. But if you were to say, could you go out right now and run a mile? Yeah, I can do that. The next day, can you go out and run a mile? After a week, can we slowly, start to, increase your speed and decrease your time? Yeah, I can do that. Can we start to, give you a longer and longer run? Like that's how athletes train. And really that's how, a lot of teachers structure their classroom too. We want small victories. We want small wins, so that when students go in to, take these, bigger standardized tests, or, college entrance, tests and things like that, they know that it's not the end all be all, but they have a past experience with success.
So Mike and I are big proponents of using a learning management system effectively. And in the book you state, when educators don't take the time to create visually appealing assignments and resources, students can have an adverse first reaction to any tasks. So correcting this oversight leads to one of the easiest ways to avoid quit points. So Mike and I, we do training for example, for Schoology or professional development. And we know of educators that they don't really get that connection. So between something that's well organized and visually appealing as far as materials and activities, and how important it is to teaching and learning. Tell us more about like what you guys found as far as in the research or just in your experiences.
like once again, that's as you said, that's probably one area where teachers ignore that very often. I would say particularly the higher up you go in K through 12 education or even at the college level, because it becomes more and more content specific, the higher up you go, where the overwhelming emphasis becomes content, not necessarily as much the delivery. That's going to be the student's first interaction with a lot of that content. So finding ways for them to not get tripped up, on that experience, I think is a big part of it. My older son is in second grade, and there'll be times where he comes home and like first thing, all right, what do we have for homework tonight? And I have to get on, sometimes it's your very traditional, worksheet of, whatever, 10, math problems and stuff like that. But there's other times where it's, my teacher wants me to get on this program and play this game for 15 minutes tonight. And it seems so simple, and that's how we teach kids at a young age. And then as people get older, we just forget the element of, turning things into a game because it's fun. I'll interact with that not because I care about learning, multiplication, but I care about it because it's a game and I like the game or how it's set up. Or our very first attempt at a website that we used in the classroom, that first year when we went one-to-one, and I think we suffered from the same thing that almost every teacher website suffers from. Like, we felt that every single thing was important, and the reality was maybe 10% of what we had on that website was important.
Very true.
So we actually went back and like 3 days before class, I saw a teacher presenting at a conference, and they were using Apple TV as a presentation tool. And this was several years ago. My older one's like 3 or 4 years old, and I'm looking at the presentation, and I'm like, I've never used Apple TV, but I see that, and I'm confident that I could take whatever remote and figure everything out. What if we used what if we redesigned our website so that my 3-year-old could sit down and figure out where he's supposed to go? And so I came back from the conference and I was like, all right, Sveti, I have a crazy idea. What if we completely delete our website, something that we had done for 2 years, but quite frankly looked awful, and the students never used because it looked awful. It was too busy, too many words. It didn't make sense in terms of where to find anything. And I said, what if we just have like little icons like kids have on their tablets and their phones? Right. And so we kind of went back to basics, and we always joke with our students on the first day when we introduce the website. We're like, there's only 6 buttons, so you could only be wrong 5 times, like before you get to the location where we're supposed to be. And so like, awesome. Like on that first day, I was mentioned like, okay, I pull up the website. Where do you think we're going to start today? And kids will take a guess. Like, I'm going to guess daily assignments. Excellent. And you just click on that icon and boom, you're where you're supposed to be. Kind of what you were saying, by using like some type of designed management system, it cuts down on those obstacles of, how many of us as teachers, you've been like 10 minutes into a lesson and you think that a good number of the students are engaged and working, and then you'll have the kid that's, what are we supposed to be doing? Where are we?
Yeah,
I don't know what we're doing. And immediately you get frustrated and you kind of like take it personally. Like, what do you mean? Like, why didn't you ask in the first minute? Like, why did you wait 15 minutes in? And I think that like the structure and the design of a lot of things in education, like it's overwhelming in terms of some of the research actually on it. Once again, it kind of goes back to some of the behavioral economics stuff. Kind of the 2 prominent individuals in the field are 2 scientists, Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman, that are pretty prominent, have been talked about quite a bit recently. Michael Lewis, the author, one of his last books was about those 2 and their academic collaboration. But there was an entire chapter of one of their books where they talked about like marketing and things like that, and text size, color, all of those things matter and impact how people will consume information. So I've seen teachers where it's like, well, I want to use less paper, so I'm going to cram everything into this in really small font with 1/2-inch margins all the way around, and they do it for a good reason. Like they're trying to use less paper. But at the same time, it's like, you just turn it around to them. Okay, now imagine you're the student and the teacher puts this down on your desk. What are you going to do? It's just a mass of words, and that is going to cause a lot of people to shut down and quit, right off the bat. One major lesson that Sveti and I had in our very first year working together was before we had the computers in the classroom. As social studies teachers, we do use a lot of, we call them DBQs or document-based questions, primary and secondary sources. The students answer questions. The students are trying to put together a formal, like the end goal is like a formal essay.
Yeah.
And so we were using those, but when we were still using paper, we were, stapling these big packets together. And we noticed a quit point, like we joke about it now, but I'd walk around the room and I'd toss this packet down and it makes like an audible thud as it hits the desk. And like,
no thanks.
Looking back on it, yeah, a lot of my students who were not, they were not particularly resilient students. They were not particularly strong students. And they hear this giant thick packet of, 15 pages hit their desk. They're done. They're done. And, so I could tell them like, no, this is a week-long assignment that we're working on. This isn't today. But for them, it was done the moment it hit. And so, even before we had, a management system or a website and things like that, we were like, we really need to chunk these up better. Let's take this DBQ of 9 documents and an essay. And what if we just give them an assignment to complete in one day with 3 documents on one piece of paper? Some of the research even shows, and we've done this work in our department, teacher-based teams, we've experimented with just putting text inside a text box. It's almost like it frames the work for the students, and
yes,
the amount of participation, increases significantly because it looks like something that's manageable. We try very hard to get all of our assignments into as small little chunks as possible because it's easier for the students to interact with, and it reduces that element of quit point.
So the book, friends, is called Quit Point. It's available everywhere, including by clicking the link in our show notes. Adam and Sveti, thanks so much for joining us, guys.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to On Education. My name is Mike Washburn. My co-host is Glen Irvin. Want to get in touch with us? Check out our website at oneducationpodcast.com. You can tweet us at oneducationpod. Glen is at Irv Spanish on Twitter. I can be found on Twitter at Mr. Washburn. You can find us on Facebook by visiting facebook.com/oneducationpod. We're also on Instagram at oneducationpod. If you're enjoying the show and think others would too, we'd be thrilled if you shared it with them. Please leave us a rating or review in Apple Podcasts or on the Google Play Store. When you leave a rating, it gives our rankings a boost. This helps others discover the show. We want to thank our presenting sponsor, Classcraft, for supporting us. Check out classcraft.com/oneducation to learn more about them. Thanks as always for listening. Stay awesome. See you soon.